guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Mail. So for today, I had this great email that was sent from a subscriber. That's from a guy, he's in his 60s, he is a Army veteran, and he shares his story from like 30 plus years ago, how he dodged the biggest missile in the world by getting rid of his fiancée after learning the sad truth that she was a big giant cheater, as well as many other things. And how he does this, and how he recruits his dad to help him, and also another ally, who I'm not going to mention, an ally he never expected to help him, get rid of her. And it's a great story to prove the point why you're in the military. Don't get engaged, don't get married, all that, and what can happen. And take a wild guess what that girl did for a living. A nurse. And the stereotype continues. Now here's the thing, guys. This story is very long, so it's going to be split up into two parts. And as per usual, I'll do part two to this in 2 hours. And also, this actually would have been 3 videos, but I skipped the beginning about his childhood because even though it was interesting and entertaining, I want to stick to the main theme of this story when he was a young adult meeting this girl and all that. And all I can say about his childhood is that he started having a good childhood. He lived out in the country, did all the things that you do in the country, like shooting and all that. But parents got divorced because his mom was cheating on the dad, and in the worst possible way. And mom got custody of him and his brothers and sisters. And once he became an adult, he wanted nothing to do with her for obvious reasons. So that's the beginning there. So I'm going to jump into this, part 1 here. It's very, very good. And believe me, we have a great grand finale here. Oh, and before I get into this, as I always say, because I know I'm going to get a lot of people watching this, if you haven't done it, come join me on X, formerly Twitter. Really trying to grow it over there. You know, YT doesn't promote me like the old days, so I got to do what I got to do. And your fellow scumbags and hooligans are having a good time over there, so come join us. The handle is SSM Channels. Okay. So he says here, hello, SSM. I'm writing to tell you about my story. It's a story of betrayal, love, death, deceit, and a lot of lessons learned and lessons we men should have learned. As a precaution, I've never been a very good writer. Even when in the military paid for my college, I took STEM, and I followed in my father's footsteps when it came to that. People that can write very well have a gift, and I wish I had that gift. So some people won't like the details of the things I write, but that's the way it was back then, and even today in some small backwoods communities. The men in my family were strong and successful, or so I thought. But we are men that love and value family. We can never be alone, as family is necessary for kids, grandkids, and a legacy of the family name. As an older man, I've become obsessed with your channel, as listening to your stories and commentary. I wonder what it would have been like to never marry or have kids. What would the trade-off be like? Well, I'm happy, and a lot of other guys out there are happy, but some people might say, well, SSM, when you're on your deathbed, you won't be so happy. I beg to differ. I wish the strong men in my family had some of the R-pill knowledge that you speak about. From my great-grandfather down, all the men in my family were combat veterans, but at the time, the World War II veterans were most revered in my family. We thought we were all good men. We loved our country, loved our families, went to church, did the right thing, etc. But we all had lessons to learn when it came to women. The one area in our lives we didn't conquer was relationships. That's why I'm fascinated with your channel and the things that you teach, even though you, SSM, may never know what it's like to have a wife, family, or a child. My mind is always thinking about this trade-off. Well, there are many people that go down the path with no wife and kids, and some regret it one day, and others don't. But I'm sure those that watch my channel regularly are like, holy crap, I'm glad I chose my path. It is what it is. So now we're going to fast forward to when he graduates high school and gets in the military. Mom and dad are divorced. He's no longer talking to his mom. Okay. Because I skipped the whole beginning of the childhood. Not because it wasn't good, but because I don't want to do 3 videos here, and I want to stick to the main thing. He says, so I graduated high school. I turned down the scholarship as I wanted to see my father, and live with him. Obviously, this is after you haven't lived with him for a while. I moved back to my home state, got a job in my own apartment, and would see my dad every week. One day while talking to my father, he asked me what my goals were in life. I said I don't really have any goals and want to be near him. That isn't a goal, man. You got to have a goal. And your dad's going to tell you got to have a goal. He gave me a serious talk and said I need to establish some very clear life goals and go with them. And he'd be there for me to support me any way that he could. While we were talking, I told him I always wanted to join the military. He encouraged it, so I contacted a recruiter. After talking with my dad, I decided to enlist and be trained as a PJ. I would be a pararescue man. I'd be a parajumper trained at the high levels as a high-level medic, saving lives in the ocean or on land. I was set and I was training for what was to come. I was running 10 miles a day and swimming a mile a day. I was in great shape. Damn, dude, that is a commitment. That is dedication to what you want to do. Because once you get to boot camp or you're going to be running your ass off. After I graduated basic training, I spent 15 months in my pipeline training. Paramedic school, jump school, mountain climbing and rappelling, water survival school, and weapons training. Cold weather survival and SERE school in Maine. It says it's survival, evasion, resistance, escape. That training was a bitch. Well, I would imagine they got put you in the worst possible scenarios to prepare you for the worst possible shit. My Boy Scout compass navigation training combined with the advanced military navigation training got me through it. Let me tell you, SSM, the basics of a compass never change and can save your life. This is a skill everybody should know. Those that know, know. Some people don't graduate this course and their military careers basically end it. It's a motherfucker of a course. Upon graduating SERE, I'm just going to call it SEER. So it's SEER. We were all beat to shit and I had lost 17 pounds at the course. Holy crap. I called my dad to tell him the good news of me graduating, and he told me he was giving me the 56 Chevy that we had restored together as a congratulations. I was so excited and happy. I love that truck. Awesome, man. And that's cool that you restored it together. My graduating class and I went out to celebrate. I was looking forward to trying some real New England clam chowder. It was always on my mind. It was in Maine, of course, and I had to try that chowder. You mean chowder? Our group split up. Some went to the sports bar, and the other half went to the pub restaurant that served me the New England clam chowder. Well, I lived in New England for many a years, and let me tell you, I miss that. Because no, South Florida cannot replicate good New England clam chowder. I miss the clam chowder, I miss a few of my friends from Massachusetts, and I miss autumn. And that's it. He's going to go on about the clam chowder. I'm just going to skip this part. Oh, no, actually, I got to read this part because this is important. Growing up, I had clam chowder, but this chowder really was top-notch. 5 stars. Yes, I know. I was very impressed with the food in the Northeast. After eating and drinking some beers with my fellow graduates at the pub, I noticed a beautiful brunette with big brown eyes. This gal was gorgeous. I will call her Becky. Just looking at her, I knew my life was about to take a turn. Dude, you had no idea how your life was going to take a turn. You should be calling her Jessica, but you know what? Since you're military, we're going to call her Becky. Now, as I said, you talk about red flags. Honestly, I think this is where the men in my family had failed. I never heard anything about red flags from the men in my family. That's because they failed. I guess we were just ignorant of that. I know I'll get smacks, but here is where the rest of my story comes into play. As they say, you were young and dumb and full of cum, and you got this hot, badass bitch named Becky with probably big tits and big ass, and she liked you, so you're going to do what young guys do. Becky was drop dead beautiful, and yes, she said she was a nurse. I approached her and started a conversation. We instantly felt a connection, and the conversation was great. After some drinks, she ended up going home with me, and we slept together that night. That ain't girlfriend material. You're thinking she's a keeper. I'm keeping this girl that fucked me the first night after meeting her after my clam chowder. What a great night. You got to try your clam chowder and you got laid. Unfortunately, you should have kicked her to the curb. But then we wouldn't have this story here. We slept together that night. I was in love with Becky and I told her so. Smack! What? You told her that night? She's immediately thinking, ooh, this guy's pussy whipped. I can do whatever I want with this motherfucker. Now, I had about 2 weeks of leave before my first assignment, and I had no idea where I'd be stationed. I asked Becky if she wanted to come and visit me where I lived and meet my father. Dude, you just banged this chick. I don't care how hot she is. Come on. She has nothing to earn this, aside from, doing things with your Rambo there. She said she couldn't afford it, but I assured her I would pay for everything. Smack! Yeah, as long as you keep getting laid, you'll be happy to pay for things, or get her to date you, or be your girl you can write to while you're away. The next 2 weeks was a great time. We effed like rabbits every day, and I was driving her around in the 56 Chevy. At least you're getting laid. My father even said that she was a good catch. Well, he didn't. Well, you said the men in your family have bad ability to screen women. Towards the end of the 2 weeks, I got my first duty station. It was a 1 year OCONUS assignment to Korea. I don't know what the fuck that is. I was excited, but didn't want to leave Becky. Smack! Dude, I'm sure there's plenty of Korean babes you could have had fun with. We spoke about it and agreed to commit to a long-distance relationship. Smack! After I got to Korea, the plan was I would bring her over for a week to visit in the middle of my tour. And what do you think Becky's doing while you were gone? Going to church every day? Missing you, writing you letters? I don't think so, dude. She was on the lookout for guys like you at that bar for a reason. After that remote assignment, I would leave Korea and get assigned to a base somewhere in the Midwest, and if possible, a base about 120 miles from where my father lived. Well, Becky came to visit me in South Korea for 9 days. My sergeant gave me a full week off if I would pull 2 CQ shifts. There were 2 24-hour shifts of basically playing babysitter for the guys in the barracks. Oh, I'm sure that was fun. The problem was my 2 days of CQ were the first 2 days Becky would be visiting. I let her know that she was fine hanging out at the hotel and shopping those 2 days on her own, and she said that would be fine. When she arrived, I drove to the hotel, checked her in, and took her bags to our room. We had passionate but very quick you-know-what, as I had to get back to the base to pull CQ. The hotel has several bars and restaurants and even a disco. I told her I'd call her, and she could charge anything to the room, and I'll see her in 2 days. On our 3rd day there, I arrived at the hotel. I was so happy. I had 7 days with my girl. I put my bags in the room and went to use the bathroom before we went out. As I was sitting on the throne, I was staring at the empty wastebasket next to the toilet. As I looked closer, it was not empty. There was a nasty toenail in the bottom of the trash liner. Well, that's disgusting. Hope none of you guys, if any of you guys are eating right now, put down your food. It was gross. He says, now, Korean guys can be pigs. They'll pick their nose, feet, and crouches in public. I was imagining a smelly, fat Korean dude picking his toenail off, then handing it to his wife to throw away before they checked out. Dude, can you see what's going on here? That toenail in the trash can was from some guy that was banging your girl. I came out of the bathroom and told Becky about it, and called housekeeping saying we needed the trash emptied and the room cleaned out better. Well, Becky and I head out for the night. The next week was pure bliss. We had a wonderful time trying different restaurants, shopping, and yes, went to the disco. Oh, how fun. It was a blast. Just imagine 70s and 80s music and the disco ball hanging from the ceiling. We had so much fun that week. We talked about our future together, marriage, having kids, and spending the rest of our lives together. Aw. All from a chick you met and banged the first night you met her in the freaking bar with your clam chowder. Imagine if you went to a different place for the clam chowder. I'd spent 6 months in Korea, then I'd return to the States, and Becky and I could get married and be together for the rest of our lives. Or so I thought. Fate had other plans for me. It usually does. After Becky departed, my unit was notified of deployment to the Middle East and said the U.S. was going to defend Kuwait against an Iraqi invasion. Here we go. So we're talking 1990. I was 12. I couldn't believe it. The Iraqis were our allies, and certain skill sets of the Iraqi military trained in our military schools in the U.S. Our unit asked for volunteers to go, and unashamedly, I did not volunteer. I had a few months left in Korea, and I wanted to get the hell out of here and return to Becky. Well, within a few days, I was given the orders to deploy. I was guessing my number came up, and I wasn't lucky enough to rotate back to the States. The deployment was swift and precise. They gathered us all together in formation, and medical was there to give us any needed shots or immunizations. Admin and legal was there to make up this update. Our SGLI, Service Members Group Life Insurance, and provide any needed power of attorney that we might need back home. I listed Becky as my beneficiary, and the policy would pay her $250,000 if I was killed. What a great deal for Becky. Imagine if she has other guys out there that have done the same thing. What a payday for her. And by the way, $250,000 in 1990 is quite a payday for a girl that was only with a guy a few nights, or really a few weeks in the span of everything. Then the chaplains came in, prayed over us, and performed on-the-spot baptisms for anyone wanting to be baptized. It was a very somber mood, and we all knew then our lives were going to change. Our gear was accounted for, inspected, and loaded into the planes. I called Becky and explained to her the life insurance. Then I told her I loved her and would be back in the U.S. after we kicked the shit out of Iraq. She said she loved me and would wait for me. We cried on the phone together, and I told her not to worry. Oh, she ain't worried. Well, Operation Desert Shield, then became Desert Storm, kicked off, and I was sent to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and then Iraq. Long story short, it was a bloodbath. It was chaotic. The operation tempo was so fast, it was mind-blowing. We did take quite a few casualties, however, and some were self-inflicted. My buddy Eric died in LALO, low altitude, low opening, during a mission. His chute didn't open, and there was no time to recover. R.I.P. brother. Yes, R.I.P. Eric, and all the guys out there. So over 20 months later, I was finally rotating back to the States and re-enlisting. My selected re-enlistment bonus, SRB, was $30,000, and I hadn't touched my paycheck in nearly 2 years. Due to my remote assignment and combat time, I had first pick of my duty station and was about 2 hours away from my dad. When I arrived back home, my sister threw me a surprise party. It was my father's sisters and their husbands, a bunch of friends, and Becky was there and gave me a big kiss and hug. Dude, you earned a welcome home party. Absolutely. I was so happy. We were all drinking, talking, and my sister told me that our old house and property was for sale. So in the beginning of the story, guys, when he was a little kid, family lived on a big piece of property out in the country, and they were going to have part of the land clear to put up cabins and rent out cabins to fishermen and hunters and all that, but obviously everything got effed up with a divorce because Mommy Dearest was cheating on Dad. I instantly thought of buying back our old house. I didn't care about the commute. I had to get my own old home back. The next day, Becky and I drove out there and viewed the home and property. I couldn't believe how the owners let the place go to shit. I spoke to the real estate agent, and she told me what offer I needed to get the place back. The next day, I went to the bank and applied for a loan. A few days later, I was turned down, but the loan officer told me if I came up with a larger down payment, I could qualify. I asked him how much, and he gave me the number. Between my SRB and my saved paychecks, I had enough money, but that was all I had, and I wasn't going to deplete everything. I had to have my house back, so I asked my dad if it would be okay if I sold the Chevy, which was worth an easy $20,000 at the time. That truck is a big deal because you and your dad restored it. Oh, hell no. He advised me not to sell the Chevy, but he would loan me the difference of what I needed as long as he'd be able to stay in the cabin and hunt and fish the property anytime he wanted. He already knew that was a guarantee, so I said sure as long as we could listen in on the phone calls together. We both laughed. I put the money down and bought the house and property back. Awesome. That's great, man. I was happier than I ever been since I was a kid. Becky and I celebrated, and I asked her to marry me. Oh boy. We planned our wedding for the next year in mid-August, which was going to be at my house in the backyard overlooking the lake. It was going to be perfect. Well, Becky got offered a job at the local hospital, then went home to Maine for a month to gather her things and move it all back to my house. A month later, Becky had a full-size moving semi, showed up and started unloading her stuff. I was in shock. I asked her, seriously, a full-size tractor and trailer? She rolled her eyes and said, of course. She had more shit than a family of 5. Yeah, from all the guys that bought her things. My dad laughed and said, good luck, son. Becky did bring some nice furniture and a living room set, including an entertainment center with a large screen, 27-inch TV. Yeah, that's big at the time, huh? So after seeing that, I was thinking, cool. Remember, guys, he's getting his house back on the property that was lost because of the divorce. And then he's moving Becky with all her shit. And some courts will think that, hey, if she's moved in and they split up, it can be very difficult getting rid of her. You get the point here. Fast forward a few months, I was almost finishing building out the basement into a real man cave. Becky had about 15 boxes still piled up, so I decided to move them into an area to make room for my plans. As I was moving the box labeled taxes, I decided to snoop. I wanted to see her tax returns. I got no problem with this. You're marrying her. You need to know some dirt on her, as well as, frankly, her credit card balances and what credit card she has. And I mean, back in the early 90s, could you get credit reports? I have no idea. I would imagine credit reports existed, but obviously not easy to get like today. He says, maybe I had a sugar mama. As I opened the box, there was a pile of tax documents, but there was also a pile of letters. The first letter was a medical statement from a women's clinic confirming a procedure that Becky had gotten. Uh-oh, we know what that procedure is. That could seriously impact her having your children one day. The rest of the letters looked like love letters. This was a stack of 27 handwritten letters all addressed to Becky. I almost fucking choked on my tongue when I saw the name of the sender. The letters were written by a first lieutenant in my unit when I was in Korea. What? How could that be? Becky is angelic. I didn't work for him directly, but he was an officer and was in charge of my main chain of command. My teammates and I made fun of him because he acted like a badass but oozed arrogance and stupidity. Sounds like a lot of officers I've heard about. He never PT'd or did his mandatory parachute jumping as he had a continual medical waiver for his ingrown toenails and feet. It was so bad the military had to perform surgery on his toes, but he was healed. We used to say stuff like Lieutenant Wimpy can't run today because his toesies hurt. Lieutenant Wimpy can't wear boots today because his toesies hurt. I get the point. You call him Lieutenant Wimpy, he's a pussy. The officer was a joke to all of us. Everyone knew he was milking the medical waiver for months even after he was healed, and no one in the unit had any respect for him. Well, that's a terrible chain of command. As I started to read the letters, my heart sunk. I now knew where that toenail came from. Ugh. It came from the hotel bathroom wastebasket, and I couldn't believe it. What I read in those letters changed my life forever. Yeah, it wasn't some Korean dude, it was that dude, and the couple days you were there, he's banging her. Oh my God, man. Well, this is why you don't get so serious with a girl that you meet in the freaking club, having your clam chowder, and you hook up the first night. And you spend years getting to know your girl. And you barely knew her weeks before you're imagining her as the love of your life. You get the point, guys. But he's learned the hard way, as many guys do. And now he's engaged to her, and she's in his place with all her shit. And, having residence there. I'm sure her mail's now going there. It can be tricky to get her out. And you know darn well a girl like this would probably burn the whole place down and make up a whole lot of things about him before, But though it's going to get worse before it gets better, guys, but our ending is good. I didn't have the letters from Becky to him, but the conversations they were having was clear about how he would respond to her letters. There were 2 to 3 pages of love letters and sexually explicit details of their affair and how they felt about each other. I don't have the energy to go over all the details of each letter, but I'll start with the first letter and give highlights. Well, I'm going to skim through this, but the gist of it is pretty bad. In the first letter, he stated how incredible and amazing it was to meet her at the hotel bar. He said he knew the moment he saw her that he had to have her. Another fucking idiot. He could feel the instant chemistry and connection and that they were meant for each other. I wonder if she got a $250,000 life insurance policy from this motherfucker. The guy telling the story and Lieutenant Wimpy here and other guys. Think about it. The 2 days of the hot sex they had was beyond anything he had imagined possible. Oh, for God's sakes. He went on describing breaking her virgin cherry ass in two, and the fact that she gave that solely to him should convince her that she was not in love with her fiancé, but me, and that her actions proved she never really loved her fiancé, but actually loved him. In other words, she gave Lieutenant Wimpy backdoor caboose action, but our guy telling the story didn't get his backdoor caboose action from her. Shocker. He told her that he would forever be the one to have her ass, and expected her buttercup to be ready and willing to go any time he wanted. He told her to reconsider her feelings for her fiancé and to realize she was not only to be happy with him. He described her willingness to let him continuously shoot his love juice, knowing she couldn't get pregnant there, and just proved how connected they were. She's probably like, this dumb asshole, ha 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 ha, all in love with her. Now, I have a few things to say about this. First, it's obvious from the first few letters, she never told him who I was or my name. Becky's a smart girl. Second, I was pissed. I would imagine, sir. I loved Becky, and I loved her body. We did everything sexual, and I loved to go down to Chinatown, but one thing she never allowed me to do was the backdoor action. She said how it works. Believe me, I tried talking to her many times, but she always said no. That's because you tried talking her into it. That doesn't work that way. Thirdly, I'm disgusted. I went down to Chinatown many times when she was in Korea, and that piece of shit boot lieutenant had his you-know-what in her inside. Yeah, I get the point. The letter he wrote was disgusting and filled with his love for Becky. Shockingly, the letters got worse. Well, we get the point. We don't need any more details. On his third and fourth letter, he starts out with, "Really? Your fiancé is such and such? Do you realize he works for me?" So this asshole finally finds out it's you. Do you realize he's an ignorant enlisted puke that passes up college and the chance of becoming a commissioned officer like me? Do you realize I make 3 to 4 times that he makes? Do you realize, based on what he does, the odds are that he will end up injured, maimed, or killed? This is what this guy was saying to her because he was jealous of the dude telling the story. He said to her, "You're better off marrying me, a commissioned officer, and live a life of wealth and luxury. We were meant for each other, and you know it." Newsflash, any guy that has to convince a girl to be with him ain't going to get her. He's just another $250,000 life insurance policy for her. The letter goes on with all kinds of garbage like that and includes a plan for Becky to come see him in Korea in the near future, which she did while I was in Iraq. Holy crap. Oh my God. See, guys, these gals are awful. Wait until you're out of the military to get in relationships, get married, get engaged, and all that. And don't get in a relationship with a girl that you banged the first night meeting in a bar. Just get extra clam chowder. That will be almost give you the same great feeling as pork and some hot chick. Really. The clam chowder New England's like, all the New England brothers can back me up here about the clam chowder. Why didn't that piece of shit lieutenant go to Iraq? Oh, I forgot. His toes were sore. After this, my emotions turned from unbelief and sadness to vengeance and hate. Well, good. Use your hate. At that moment, I took all the letters out of the box, taped the box shut, and stacked it with the other boxes. I called my father and said I need to speak with him ASAP and was driving over to his house. You need your old man, because he's been through this shit before. Upon arriving at my dad's house, he walked up to me and just gave me a big hug. He didn't look at my face. I told myself I'd never cry again. But I broke down and cried all over his shoulder, and my dad said, "Let's go inside and talk." Dude, that's okay. Just don't let her see you cry. Let it out. And I like that his dad isn't giving him a hard time saying, "Man up, pussy." No, this is understandable. Your dad's been through this shit before. But it'd be one thing if you just moped around forever, then he'd smack you. Time to put a plan to action. I handed him all the letters and asked him to read all of them and make copies of everything. I told him everything. As I explained and got the details of the letter number 7, I broke down sobbing. As my dad grabbed me with tears in his eyes and shook me and slapped me. Oh, okay. Now he's got to slap it out of you. You cried enough. Smack, snap out of it, son. He said to me, "Never cry again. Get a plan for your life and don't ever change it for a woman." Damn right, Dad. If a woman comes into your life, she follows your plan. And if she doesn't, let her walk away and kick her ass out. Very wise words, Dad. Now you got to kick out Becky. My dad said to give him time to go over the letters and not to let Becky know what we know. He said she was beyond devious and had all her stuff in my house. And she was psycho enough to burn down my home and property when confronted. We need to come up with a plan to get Becky out of my life. Yes, and it has to be done in a way that legally you won't be held accountable for, all her shit in your house and establishing residency and, you all get that. My dad says, "Son, society doesn't give a shit about men. They're expected to do everything on their own. If a man cheats, lies, and destroys the lives of others, there is swift and severe consequences. But if a woman does the same thing, she'll get sympathy, all your property, all your money, and take your kids away from you." That's what happened to his dad. He encouraged me and reminded me that this was a blessing as we were not married yet and had no kids. We agreed to meet up in a few days and execute a plan to get Becky out of my life. And oh, do they come up with a great plan. So guys, that's where I'm ending part 1 here. We're at about a half an hour here. I know you want to kill me, but I'm not doing this full thing here in one show. I'm going to split this up. So guys, come back in 2 hours and you'll hear the exciting plan and the very unexpected ally to help our young brother here get rid of Becky. You'll never see this come. Well, some of you might. But let me tell you, it's a good one. I will see you then.